Ruben Amorim to West Ham rumour has come as a right bolt from the blue. It was only the night before that Julian Lopetegui had been really heavily linked to West Ham, even as far as to suggest that he'd been offered the West Ham job. So I wasn't expecting this rumour, these pictures of Ruben Amorim getting on a jet, supposedly heading for London for talks with West Ham. I mean, it could have been anyone. You could take a picture of anyone. You could take a picture of Lionel Messi getting into a car and say, Lionel Messi heading over to Stratford now. It don't mean he's coming here. But anyway, the rumour started to gather momentum, and what started as a few websites, started as a few journalists like David Ornstein and, of course, Fabrizio Romano, then sort of snowballed. The mainstream media were sort of reporting it as fact, which makes you sort of have to stand up and take a little bit of notice. I didn't have to do any research on this guy because, hopefully, as some of you remember, about 6-7 weeks ago, did a video about up-and-coming managers that maybe West Ham might want to target, and Amorim was on there. He was actually top of the list at the time. Now, I am a little bit mindful here that we are dealing with a man that is in a job, and that is David Moyes. But I wouldn't be discussing this if I didn't think he was going to go. Well, I probably would discuss it, but not really with any sort of intensity and with any passion, with any expectation. But I do expect West Ham to have a new manager at the end of the season. Look, David Moyes is a manager from another era. He's a manager that wishes things were like they used to be, but probably hasn't acclimatised to the fact that times have changed. And that's just where he is. He just seems to have served his time at West Ham, and I think he's gone, irrespective of what's being said at the moment. Just so as you know, the official club line right now is that David Moyes' future will be decided at the end of the season, that Tim Stuyton is going to hand a list of candidates to David Sullivan and the board, and they will then sit down with David Moyes and they will assess the best option and the best way forward for West Ham. Now, when I heard that, I guess I was sort of a little bit deflated, like a lot of people would have been. Not just for the fact that hearing that makes you think that we might get David Moyes again next season, and for all reasons that I explained yesterday. I spent half hour in a video yesterday explaining why I didn't feel that David Moyes was the right man to see the next project forward. And we are, with the age of the squad, with everything else, we're at the end of the previous era, if you like, and we're at the start of a new age, the start of a new project. Everything has to start again, basically. And I didn't want David Moyes to be the man to sort of propel that forward. However, I was quite pleased that they were going to look at it, but maybe just a little bit annoyed that it seems to be taking so long. But what annoyed me more than anything about this situation of sitting down with David Moyes at the end of the season was I thought, well, hold on a second. Any potential managers are not going to wait until then. If you are an up-and-coming manager or even an established good manager, you're not going to sit around waiting for West Ham to turn up. It's not like the whole world is going to sit and just wait while we decide on David Moyes' future. No, if you want to go and get a new manager, you've got to go and get him now. Now, this is something that West Ham have been guilty of with players in the past. We seem to get to a transfer window, then start looking, and then we find out that maybe they're going to sign for somebody else or they don't want to come. We've seen it so many times. We don't seem to do the groundwork. We don't do a reconnaissance on it at all. So I was pleased, I think, to hear that. I think the first of all was with Lopetegui. Now, it's always a funny one. Whenever you say anything remotely positive about somebody, you'll get labelled with wanting them. I mentioned a couple of things about him. He's not the manager I want. He's not my first choice. But I did say that I thought he'd be a better manager than David Moyes. I feel the same with Paulo Fonseca as well. I don't feel that Fonseca is the guy that I want. I feel that if Tim Stuyton's going to have a role in recruiting West Ham's next manager, he'd probably look for a younger model, so to speak. And I didn't think that either Lopetegui or Fonseca were those people. However, I did think they would be better. You'd see better football than under David Moyes. And I think that the thing that there's two reasons that made me convinced that it would have been those two, and that's because they're cheap. They're free, in fact. Fonseca's out of contract for Lille at the end of the season. Lopetegui doesn't have a club at all. He does not have a club. Not only that, he's actually living in the UK. As we understand it, he's turned down the Milan job in order to stay in the UK. People taken that, put 2 and 2 together. Maybe they come up with 4, maybe they did come up with 5, who knows, and that was that he'd been offered the West Ham job. This was the news as of 12 hours before the Ruben Amorim rumours broke. It didn't surprise me. It sort of made sense. He loves the Premier League. He's a good manager. Look, don't get me wrong. He is a good manager. And I think he would bring an improvement on the style of football that David Moyes had employed without being the fully expansive manager that maybe everybody might want. And I don't care about that. I don't need West Ham to be fully expansive. I just need us to be better than we are, I think, certainly. And not, I'd certainly like the next manager to come in and have a real go at those big clubs and not be so frightened, not be so startled and terrified. I often say that David Moyes would go defensive against the dog and duck, and I sort of think he would. And let's be fair, Moyes' defensive tactics aren't working anyway. But on to Amorim. Amorim, I still find it really hard to believe this, and I'm sort of waiting for the rumours just to go away, but they don't seem to be going away, although they are quite new. They're quite embryonic, aren't they, really? They've not been around a long time. And that's because he is so highly regarded. He really is. When I did my video, 6 or 7 weeks ago, whenever it was, I said, look, there are a number of managers that West Ham can't go and get. Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp, the very top managers West Ham can't get. But the next rung, the next level down, we absolutely can. We're a decent club. We've got, by European standards, we have a huge transfer budget. There's hardly any Spanish clubs, hardly any Portuguese clubs. Well, no Portuguese clubs have probably got the budget of West Ham. 1 or 2 Spanish clubs, if you're lucky. 1 or 2 German clubs. I mean, West Ham probably able to spend more in the next transfer window than the 95% of European clubs. That makes us attractive. We're based in London. That's something that's very attractive to a lot of managers. We have a recent European pedigree. I do think us going out of Europe won't have helped, by the way. But I think if you are an ambitious manager, you probably look at West Ham and you think, I can get them back. And that's the difference, isn't it? I think now you're looking to say, I can get them back. Before, we didn't have a European pedigree. Well, we did, but it was so long ago that actually, they probably thought it was quite a big task to get West Ham up there. And now I think with the budget, with some of the players we've got, with the academy, I reckon a lot of managers will look and think, I can get them up there. So we're right to be ambitious. No, we can't go and get Carlo Ancelotti, but we are right to be ambitious in who we go and target. I think the thing that makes this more unbelievable than any other is that he has a release clause. And I looked at the release clause. You remember me talking about it. I was absolutely amazed. When I did my research on him, I found that they'd paid almost 10 million euros to Braga, Sporting Lisbon had. And they'd obviously put a big release clause on him when Liverpool were linked with him. And Liverpool were heavily linked with both him and Xabi Alonso, and it appears that Liverpool won't be getting him now. But you wouldn't put it past them to try and sneak in there. I was reading it all the time. I was watching him because now, by that point, I'd done a video on him. I knew who Amorim was, so it would sort of spike my attention any time I saw his name. And there it was. Basically, people were saying his buyout clause was anything between 10 million and some even saying 25 million euros. What I think is clear is his buyout clause won't be less than what they paid Braga for him, and they paid Braga 10 million euros. So I think it was the general consensus was it was between 15 and 20 million euros, his release clause at Sporting Lisbon. And I just find it hard to imagine West Ham paying a transfer fee for a manager, because that's really what it is, isn't it? A buyout clause. You're paying a transfer fee for a manager. And I guess I'm just a cynic in that sense. I don't expect us to sign somebody like Ruben Amorim. I expect Steve Bruce to be West Ham's next manager. That's what it is. But look, West Ham have always paid big money to managers. I say always. Recently, we do. So whilst we might not pay a transfer fee, do you remember in the Championship? I don't know if you remember this stat that was when we were in the Championship. Sam Allardyce, even though he was a Championship manager, was the 13th. I don't know if it's a weird number, but this is what it was. Was the 13th highest paid manager in world football, even in the Championship. I think Pellegrini, when he was with us, was in and around the top 10. We paid the big bucks. We really do, in terms of wages. So I guess if we can offer the wage, we can offer the club, we can offer a transfer budget. And I guess if the PSG job or the Bayern Munich job or the whatever, the Real Madrid job and the Man City job is not on offer, which they're not, then you've got to start looking at clubs like West Ham. You start looking at the top jobs in the Premier League. Amorim's not getting the Aston Villa job. He's not getting the Tottenham job. He's not getting the Arsenal job. Maybe Man U. But I think you look at the majority of the top jobs and he ain't getting them. So why not West Ham? Why not? For the record, very, very impressive manager. What he's done, he got a bit of a tactical lesson, as I understand it, in the Europa League last 16. They went out to Atalanta, who obviously then went out and thumped Liverpool, didn't they? What's the guy's name there? Gasperini. I think it was pretty much reported that Gasperini had given Amorim a bit of a tactical lesson there. But hey, look, he's a young manager. He's 39 years of age. By and large, he's got a very, very good record. He was excellent at Braga, which is why Sporting Lisbon paid all that money for him. And what he's done at Sporting has been pretty miraculous. I didn't know this. I only say this, as I say, because I researched him before. I was one of these people. I was guilty of thinking of the big three in Portugal. I think I just always thought it was Benfica, it was Porto or Sporting that won it. I didn't realise it was more of a top two. Before Amorim came along, Sporting had basically not contested it. I didn't realise that they had a much smaller budget than the other big two Portugueses. And so he's done pretty miraculous stuff there, really. And even to get them into the quarterfinals of the Europa League has been quite a feat and last 16 has been quite a feat and quite an achievement. So, he's had him there. He's had him in the Champions League as well. He's done a very, very good and excellent job there. He is, by all accounts, it appears to be the best young up-and-coming manager in European football, at least. There might be some other candidates in South American football. But if you were going to go and get the excellent and go for heavy ambition, high ambition, go for excellence, then this is probably the guy you go for. In fact, I mean, no doubt of it. I had no reason to select him above anyone else. I just looked at their records and this did appear to be the guy, the hottest young coach in European football. And I would be amazed if West Ham did this. I think it would show the ultimate ambition. I'd be very, very impressed indeed. Not only would I be impressed, I'd feel buoyed. I would feel motivated for the season. I think already, I don't allow myself to fully believe because I can't quite bring myself to think that West Ham would do this. This feels very un-West Ham-like. Because I don't think I've ever fully bought into the Tim Steidten situation because I've always, for all the reasons that have been this season, I felt, Moyes has had the final say on transfers and, maybe Sullivan pulled the plug on the Ibrahim Osman deal. And there's just been a number of reasons that made me think, is there really this project at West Ham? I think if we kept Tim Steidten, we got Amorim, then I would think, hold on, something's going on here. And I think it would very quickly take the edge off what's been a sort of crappy few weeks for us West Ham fans, certainly. I think the other thing to say about him that I remember from doing me little bit of research was there was a lot of praise from how he was brought through youngsters. And that's something that we need. I think that's key. If I was looking to bring anyone in, that would be quite high on my priority list, particularly given financial fair play. If West Ham can find one or two from the academy that are going to feature regularly in the squad, that's one or two we don't have to buy. And I think that's very, very good and very, very good for us. Watch this space, I guess. Watch this space. If we get the chance, to get him. I think we must get him. I don't think, and as I've seen a lot of calls, been reading a lot of stuff, Moyes has to go now, bring him in. Look, I don't think he will. I don't think he will come in. I think he wants to see the season out with Sporting. I think we probably have to respect that if that's the case. In the same way, David Moyes. I don't know. I was just about to say David Moyes might want to see the season out at West Ham. As I said, I can't speak for him, but it doesn't look like he does. He looks like he's had enough. So I don't know. I don't know what the case is there. I guess there's an element where you might think, can we bring someone in and we can get European football? But honestly, I think that chance has gone. I really do. To win the games that we have left and all of them, particularly when they sort of include Liverpool and Man City as well. It's going to be a really tough ask, and even if we did that, there's no guarantee that we do so. There's also a question of David Moyes' motivation, but you've got to sort of hope he's self-motivated and that he wants to go out on a high, really. That's no way. That's no way to leave a football club. You know, he looks dishevelled and tired, and he looks like the team looked, really, didn't he, in the interviews afterwards? He looked like a broken man, David Moyes. And irrespective of what anyone might think about him, I think I don't like to see it. It's not nice. I don't particularly like to see anybody suffer in the same. I didn't like to see Angelo Ogbonna being put out there in that game, to being made to face these fast, tricky forwards. It was a bad look. It wasn't good. I didn't like, David Moyes. By the same token, what was happening on the pitch was that actually happening to him in a managerial capacity, given the run around by somebody who had Glasner, who had already given him the run around for Frankfurt. So anyway, of course, I'm waffling. I mean, actually, funny enough, it's a funny one to settle on, actually, because you look at Crystal Palace, and they've done it, haven't they? They've taken the plunge. They've gone and got themselves a more expensive manager. I'll tell you something, though. If West Ham do this, we pull it off, and we are serious, we will have to pay a transfer fee for him. And if what we've done is we've gone and paid a transfer fee to Sporting Lisbon to get the best young coach in Europe, and we've flown him over on a private jet, and we get him, it's a big announcement. It really is. I really do think that will be it. It will be the point, I fully believe, because I haven't believed any of it, not the stadium, not nothing. I believe none of it. And even I was cynical when Steiten came in. But I think if we do this, I will start to believe that possibly, just possibly, there is a change in the ethos of West Ham.